Hey game developers. I hate to ask this, but could you stop with the really good fighting games for a while? Yeah, I know that's a crazy thing to ask for. I mean, who doesn't want awesome games, right? Well, see, you're just making too damn many of them, and I can't keep up anymore. You got Guilty Gear, King of Fighters, Street Fighter, Injustice, BlazBlue, Mortal Kombat, Smash Bros, and now a new Tekken? Yeah, my fingers are gonna fall off at this rate. Tekken 7's story mode begins after the events of the last game, where a war between the Mishima Zaibatsu and the G Corporation continues to ravage the entire world. Man, fighting game storylines are usually crazy, but this one has to be near the top of the heap. Two sides of this one family are basically destroying the world with a war. I'd hate to be at their house for the holidays. Anyway, you see the story through the eyes of a reporter whose family is killed in the war and has decided to write an expose on both sides. He's also voiced by someone who has apparently been kidnapped, given a ton of drugs to stay docile, and forced to read lines into a microphone. Seriously, just listen to this guy.
I could tell by the look in his eyes that he was telling the truth.
So, a bunch of stuff happens that involves various characters, and it all culminates in Heihachi having to fight Kazuya in a volcano in order to stop the Devil Gene. Aokuma from Street Fighter shows up to fight Kazuya as well. Blah 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 blah, fighting game bullshit, no one actually cares. The story itself is kind of pointless, as any fighting game story is, but the way you play through it is kind of interesting. Instead of picking your character and seeing the story through their eyes, the game will assign characters to you based on the story's events. So if you're seeing something that Nina is doing, for example, you get to play as her. Then you'll switch to Heihachi, and so on. While it's pretty cool to play through the first time, it being so static makes it a bit of a one-and-done scenario. There are side stories for all the characters that don't appear in the main events, which extends this mode out a bit, but generally you're gonna finish the story mode pretty quick. Well, unless you're like me and are total garbage at playing characters like Heihachi, so it takes you 2 hours to slog through because of the countless game overs. Yes, this is the level of quality and skill on display for you all. Let me go back to the voice acting for a second here. Why is it so inconsistent? The Japanese voices are all fine, just as you'd expect, but the other actors are all over the place. You've got the reporter being held for ransom, as I mentioned earlier, but then you've also got Nina, who sounds like she isn't really trying, and Claudio. Well, I don't really speak Italian, but I did live in Queens, so that means I'm an expert. And his acting also sounds off.
Jin Kazama. So che il suo demone interiore supera perfino quello di Kazuya.
If you're gonna have this inconsistency, why not just make them all speak Japanese? Gold star for trying, I guess? The music, while decently fitting, is not really the catchiest stuff in the world. It's possible that I'm just being unfair, as I'm basically directly comparing it to Guilty Gear, a series known for its amazing hard rock tracks. It's not horrible, but it's not the best either. It's kinda eh. At least the graphics are really nice here. I didn't want to spend this entire review bagging on Street Fighter V, although I was really tempted to. But dang am I glad that Tekken 7 doesn't have a fugly art style like that. While it has its own share of beefy, muscly people with ridiculous hairstyles, it's just so much more aesthetically pleasing to me. Like, look at these comparisons and tell me which one you prefer. I did notice that the graphics were a little blurry on my computer, and you can see that in the video here. But I think it's because my monitors are smaller, and this game is more oriented toward people with higher resolutions. The game looks crazy good on 4K displays, by the way. The effects look amazing. They even look cool as heck on my inferior computer. The gameplay is pretty standard for the series, and that means it leans more toward games like Soul Calibur rather than Guilty Gear. Best way I can describe it is that it's a bit slower overall. Or to put it in a better way, more deliberately paced. There's a bit more of an emphasis on grappling, and you can move your character in a semi-3D plane rather than being stuck on a 2D one. This is a tricky style of fighting game to get used to for certain. Don't be fooled by anyone saying this one is easier for beginners. It isn't. But it's definitely rewarding to do so. The more lengthy development of Tekken 7 shows in a positive way here. The gameplay feels extremely polished and a cut above a lot of the competition. This is the level that Street Fighter V should have been released at, and from what I'm to understand, has yet to really reach. Although I will be fair and say that these two series are a bit apples and oranges. Yeah, they're big series and a bit similar, but at the same time they are quite dissimilar, so take that with a bit of a grain of salt. Tekken 7 has the usual modes you would expect, like a story mode, trading mode, and an online mode. Online mode is where you're probably going to get the most bang for your buck, so I'd urge you to hop on there, even if you're kind of intimidated. I get my ass handed to me on a constant basis, but hey, that's how you learn, right? I'll be awesome at this game any day now. Any day now. There's a unique mode here that I want to point out in particular, and that's Treasure Battle. Playing this will pit you against an endless series of CPU opponents, and defeating them earns you money and items. Keep fighting for as long as possible in order to get the most treasure you can. The money you gain will allow you to purchase customization items like different clothing and different designs for your HUD. That's heads-up display. This crap. Both of these things you can abuse in order to make the ugliest, most gaudy combinations ever. Just look at this. It's glorious. By the way, if you're a Kudos fan, there are Bullet Club items you can get as they had a collaboration. If you really like Kudos, then you should go and track down one of the actual Tekken and Bullet Club shirts, which are cool as heck, but kind of expensive. Boo. Oh, you can also use your in-game money to buy stuff in the gallery, if you care about that kind of thing. Hooray, I guess. While there really are a lot of great fighting games out there right now, Tekken 7 manages to stand out in the genre with excellent graphics, loads of customization, and extremely solid gameplay. There's definitely some downsides, like the voice acting, but they're pretty minor in the grand scheme of things. If you aren't swamped in fighting game action right now, and you're looking for a new title to try out, you really can't go wrong with Tekken 7.